Hey there, this is Christopher Macor from Wholeness Geeks, and welcome to Meditation Happy Hour, where I share, excuse me, meditations, processes, perspectives, both traditional and modern. Happens every Friday at 11 a.m. approximately Mountain Time. And today I want to talk to you about vulnerability over shame. Um, I've been posting some stuff on social media about this and came up with 9 questions regarding this, which actually turned into a book and a number of other kind of expressions of that information. Um, but I wanted to take time to answer those questions for myself. Um, but I put those questions out first because I wanted you to answer those questions for yourself. So, um, me answering these questions is not is not like filling in the blanks for you. It's just giving you some. Maybe it's going to catalyze something in you to realize what those answers are for yourself. So the first question is, what is the difference between vulnerability and shame? So shame is a protective mechanism. It's meant to protect not only the person who the shamee, um, but it's also meant to protect the it protects the shamee from their own wound, and it protects the shame from the rest of the world, from judgment, from ridicule, from ostracism. Um, it's a survival technique because you know, as the human species developed, it was important. We became a communal species, and it was important to each individual's survival to stay part of that tribe. And if something that the individual felt or did or thought um, was brought their belongingness in question, then that they could be ousted, and then their survival would become, you know, in question. Um, so that's shame. Vulnerability is about healing what is underneath the shame. It's about growth. It's about growth for the individual. It's about individuation. Um, Individuation is a psychological term, and it can, one of the ways you can define it is uh, a person's ability to speak their truth regardless of who, regardless of any opinion. Um, that's a measure of individuation. And so vulnerability is sort of like the 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 tool or the mechanism of individuation. So the next question, that's question number one. Question number two is, what are the essential characteristics of each? And we've already sort of gotten into that, but going a little deeper with shame, um, you know, shame is, it's like I said, it's a two-way door. You know, it not only protects the shamee from you know, letting out what's could put them in jeopardy, you know, protecting them from from the tribe, from the collective, it protects them from their own wound. And if they can't see that their own wound, they can't see that thing that is upsetting, or could create upheaval in terms of their existence, then they can sort of function. So it's like I said, it hinges on belongingness, and it protects against judgment, both from the shamies judgment and from the collective judgment. Vulnerability, like I said, is sort of a key to individuation. It's a door that opens in both directions. When you're vulnerable, you're not only opening, up to the collective, but you're also opening. Well, let me say first, you're first of all is you're opening up to your own pain, to your own woundedness that lies beneath the shame, and you're opening that up to the collective. And in an evolved collective, the the healing of its individuals becomes more important than the tribalism. And so by opening up to the collective, that wound has the power of collective healing, and it has the power to heal the collective, because a resonance is created, like attracts like, and the similar, the wounding that's on a similar level in other people gets activated, and through the demonstration of vulnerability, they become vulnerable also. Third question is, how can we find the vulnerability beneath the shame? So, like how do we actually, in the moment, dig down in there? The first step is to notice what triggers you. When you notice what triggers you, and this is where, if the shame is really strong, you won't, you'll just become defensive, and you won't even, the recognition won't even happen. But if you by hearing this talk about vulnerability and shame, and you start to like, okay, so I see the value of this, and then the next time you get, there's a little bit of awareness that, so then the next time you get triggered, you go, and you have the tendency, whatever, to defend yourself or lash out. You might go, oh, this is happening. This is what he was talking about, and it's happening now. And so you've recognized the trigger. So once you recognize the trigger, the next thing that you want to do is you want to refrain from projection, right? And that's when you start defending yourself, or you're lashing out. It's all in reference to something out there. But if you just right away you start using I statements, like, I'm feeling such and such, and then you go down, and the first feeling like might be like, I'm feeling like you're judging me. Okay, so that's actually not a feeling, right? It's a projection, right? I'm experiencing something in relationship to you. But if I go, when I feel judged, like, what is it underneath that I feel when I feel judged? When I feel judged, I feel hurt, right? So hurt's a pretty general feeling, but when I feel hurt, in this case, when I feel hurt, um, I feel small, and it's like and when I feel small, I feel weak, I feel powerless, I feel like a victim, right? So now I'm getting to feelings that are just inside myself, and they're not in relationship to the outside world. That this process of going under and getting to the pure feeling, the getting to the womb that's underneath it all, um, can be sort of magnified by a process that I call the trapdoor technique, which is that wherever it is that so you take the same thing. So I'm feeling judged by you, and so if I close my eyes and it's like, so how does that feel when I feel like I'm being judged by you? I feel like I'm trapped inside of a room, and um, so then if I look for a trap door and I go through the trap door, there's there's another level there. It's like, okay, so now I'm in a it's like I'm in a space where that's filled with water, and I'm like floating. I'm actually like in the water. I'm underneath. I'm underwater, but I'm actually breathing underwater, and and it's kind of dark, but it's lit, dimly lit, um, and maybe there's some fish, swimming around. But then if I look again for a trap door, then I go down, and now it's a big, um, it's dark, it's water, and it's dark, it's like an abyss, and I'm swimming around, I'm in the abyss, and but I don't feel trapped anymore. There's this a sense of awe and a maybe some fear. It's like, holy, crap, this is like, where's the bottom, and it's like, um so at this level I might ask for if this feels like it's a better level than the level that I was just in. It's in a sense it's more peaceful. um I could look around and see if there's anything else there, and what I'm seeing is actually I'm seeing myself, and I'm like wanting to hug myself. This part of myself is wanting to hug me, and then if I ask, what do you have a message for me? The message I get is, you're good enough. So that I thank myself for that message, and then I come up through the trap door. So now I'm back in the level where I was with the underwater, but in dimly lit, and the fish, swimming around, and I'm playing with the fish, right? I'm bringing this message back up. I'm good enough, and that good enough makes it so I can play with the fish, and then I come back up again through the next the original trap door, and I'm in this room, and I'm good enough, and it's like I can in this room I can breathe. I can actually like sit at the table and maybe eat a meal and write, and I can walk outside, and because I'm good enough. So that's a trapdoor technique, which it kind of it gives uh, a more it's similar that we're going down through layers of feeling, but it makes each feeling a world in itself, a world that's more, has more, more sensorial, has, you know, the senses. And when you bring that back up, when you bring that message back up through, you're actually healing those different levels of being. So this is a way that you can get to the vulnerability that's beneath the shame. So the fourth question is, how can we regenerate the beliefs contained within our shame? So the first thing is uh, to notice what the issue is. You know, it's like, um, you know, and that stems from the trigger. You get triggered and you go, and so that gets put on your radar screen, and so you know that, you know, when so and so yelled at me, I I got triggered, and and you can start to notice the self-talk that starts to happen. Like, what are the things you're telling yourself? You know, um, I don't deserve this, or I'm too good for this, or um, you know, why do I have to deal with this shit? You know, so then the next step is to pivot. So you take those statements and you turn them into their opposites. So you know, the statement could be, I don't have to deal with this, and it might give you the, you know, the motivation to just leave, or so that's one example of pivoting. Um, Another thing that you can do is you can take the topic that you just happened, and you can, you know, get like a piece of paper and a pencil and put that topic at the, you know, on the top of the paper, and then write this is called sentence stems, where you're creating an avenue for your unconscious beliefs to come forward. And so so say, you know, with this, um, when so and so yelling at me is unfair. So and so yelling at me is abusive. So and so yelling at me reminds me of, right? You just write down everything that just, you don't, you know, you're not like, this is like right off the top of your mind, first thought, best thought. You're really trying to allow your unconscious beliefs to come through, and you do that, and then the next level is, people like so and so who yell are um, they're abusive. So and so people like so and so who yell are hurting inside. People like so and so who yell um, don't know how to deal with their emotions properly. Or they're unreasonable, right? And you do that whole thing. And then the last part of that is you go, I could never yell like so and so 24/7 because I'm more reasonable than that. I could never yell like so and so 24/7 because it would be exhausting. I could never yell like so and so because 24/7, because I wouldn't have time to um, reflect calmly on my life, you know. And so you write this out. You just kind of like fill a page with these things, and then what you notice what is the most charged out of all those statements, and then you take that charged statement, like so and so yelling at me is abusive. Um, you pivot, you turn that into the opposite. So and so yelling at me um, allows me to find my deeper sovereignty, and then that becomes an affirmation that can redirect you and refuel you. Okay, so that's an example of pivoting and sentence stems. The next question is how can we nurture vulnerability? Um, so one way we can nurture your vulnerability is that whenever we are vulnerable, to celebrate that, to like, all right, that was good. I just did something really good there. Um, and to in that celebration have gratitude for being able to do that. Um, we can nurture vulnerability both in ourselves and in others by listening to learn. Um, Certainly, when you actually just listen to another person and allow them to come out with all of who they are, they're going to get to a deeper level of vulnerability. But we can do that with ourselves too. Very often when we're triggered, we're not able to. There's a lot of self judgment, and we it's like we tend to not um, listen openly to what we're actually feeling and thinking. And if we can do that with ourselves, we're actually uh, we're nurturing our vulnerability. We can nurture our vulnerability with affirmations. Um, just by saying, I mean, the vulnerability is actually a long word, 6 syllables. Vulnerability. And just to chant vulnerability is going to open yourself more to that. To see it as a strength, and even a superpower, the ability um, to to navigate, between the inside and the outside, between the individual and the collective, between separateness and oneness. That is a superpower. And we can, with vulnerability, we can turn situations around. Somebody can come at us with a judgment, and if we're vulnerable, very often it disarms the person. They realize that there's that they realize their aggressiveness just in contrast. um, by creating supportive environments, we can nurture vulnerability, and that is both supportive environments, both interior environments uh, and exterior environment. With the people who are open to vulnerability, but also to um, by like practicing meditation is a way of creating a supportive internal environment to whatever it is that's coming up within us. Um, and to realize that we when every time that we're vulnerable, we're planting a seed. We're planting a seed for that behavior to continue. We're planting a seed because it's a demonstration to other people. We're planting a seed that is, in a sense, it's like a plant that's growing up through, through the cracks in the ground. The ground is like separation, and the cracks in the ground is a breaking apart of that separation. Um, the next question is, how is vulnerability contagious? Um, so, like I said before, it's a demonstration. When you demonstrate that by doing it yourself, you're demonstrating it, and when other people see that, they can, you know, consider it as a behavior that they want to engage in. You become a role model, and you create a resonance. It's like there's a certain vibration that happens when you're vulnerable, and then that vibration, it gets that similar frequency gets activated in other people, and then whatever it is that's on that level in them comes forward. um, it's the idea of like attracting like. And in doing this, what we're doing is we're reconditioning our conditioning. It's like we have eons of this kind of tribal, you know um, call it tribal survival belongingness. And which it's not attached to survival. It's not so attached to survival anymore. And so by demonstrating uh, vulnerability, we're in a sense we're creating a counterculture. We're creating counterculture, and that becomes a body of the collectivity that is doing things in a different way. The next question, number 7, is how can vulnerability help the world? So we're already kind of alluding to this. Vulnerability is like a chink in the armor of separation. It's and by being vulnerable, we're growing the underlying truth of our existence, which is oneness. And like I said, we become, a role model. When people in leadership begin to adopt vulnerability, then the decisions that are made for the culture are more in alignment with oneness rather than separation. So the next question, the 8th question, is what are the obstacles to vulnerability? So of course, fear of ostracism, ridicule, and the loneliness that ensues from that, the fringe mentality. Productivity is a obstacle to vulnerability, because vulnerability very often accentuates the process of what is happening rather than the product that's being created. And so, when if with less of an emphasis on productivity and more on process, then vulnerability can thrive. Um, and just the whole notion of separation, the whole notion is really not the right word, because we're just by being born in a body, we are uh, unconsciously indoctrinated into separateness. And and so, um, but realizing that inherent disadvantage can um, realizing that inherent disadvantage, we can uh, change our thinking about that and move in the direction of vulnerability. So, the last question: what is the relationship of vulnerability to wholeness? So, vulnerability is like the face of our shadow, right? It's like there's these things that that are tucked beneath the layer of shame, and it's shadow. But shadow is the shadow. Our shadow, our shadow pieces are the missing pieces of our wholeness. So, vulnerability is actually a path to wholeness. So, this is Christopher Macor, and I've been answering the questions that I've actually been putting out on social media regarding vulnerability over shame. And they are the questions that are the root of the book, Vulnerability Over Shame. And I wanted to, give my answers to those. And but I've been encouraging you to give your answers to those, and and hopefully by me sharing mine, it will give you some, it will create some resonance for you to realize your own answers. And that's, I think that's the most important thing here, is that we answer these questions for ourselves, because in answering them for ourselves, we actually experience our own shame and vulnerability, and heal it in the process and grow. So, yes, you can you can find out more about vulnerability and shame through there's a Facebook group called Vulnerability is a Superpower. And you can join that group and enter into the discussion. And that's, yeah, I think that's what I'd like to tell you. And thanks for listening and watching. And I encourage you to notice the shame in your life, and to dig down into the vulnerability that is beneath that shame, and share it, and share vulnerably with the world, so that we can create a world based more on oneness. Thank you for listening.